Zoe, I'm going to make some Singapore fried noodles. A delicious, hot, spicy noodle dish, which I know you're going to love. To start with, I'm going to get you to get this pork here, which is thinly sliced pork, and add some of this ketchup manis to it, which is a sweet Indonesian-style sauce. This is sort of like a noodle dish which comes from all over the place, but we sort of add different ingredients and we put it together. Now, Zoe, I found your Korean hot chili sauce there, which I know you love.
Big fan of this. It's made from soya beans and it's really nice and spicy.
You can put as much of that in there as you want. Now, what I've got is some chow mein noodles, which usually you find in an oriental soup broth, and there'll be some Peking duck or some crispy pork or some wontons on top of it.
Great.
So what I'm going to do is pop them in my pot of boiling water, and if you could pass me some salt, I'll just pop them straight in there like this. Doesn't take very long at all. As soon as they sort of come back up to the boil, I'm going to strain them off, put a little bit of olive oil on it, some oriental olive oil, if you want to call it that, and I'll just stir that around
very
so they stick together.
multicultural, this dish.
Now, you've got the pork there. What I've got is a little piece of the pork skin, which is the crackling or the fat. I pop that straight in the pan there, and I'm going to use that to render down a little bit. So I've got some flavour of the pig. Maybe it might crisp up, but it'll give it some flavour at the start. Can you pass me some of that olive oil?
Yeah,
I'm going to get started on getting all the ingredients. I've got some garlic, ginger, and some onions that I'm going to slice. Can you slice up those shiitake mushrooms for me? I'll put these out of the way. The garlic, I'm just sort of going to crush up like this and give it a bit of a chop. Now, when I was a little boy, Zoe, I grew up in Malaysia. My dad was in the Air Force, so I spent a lot of time in Malaysia. So I love this sort of food. This is the sort of what we call hawker-style food. This is what you'd find with a little makan cart would be, you know, sitting on the side of the road.
Which are always the best. The street food, I think anywhere in the world, just seems to have that rustic influence. It's just all the strong, good flavours.
Oh, that's me. I'd be on the street every day if I could.
The rustic leftover guy.
There we go. In goes the onions, and this pan's quite hot because I want to have a bit of heat in there. So I'll give that a bit of a stir. So I'll turn that up now. I'll throw your mushrooms in there. Can you slice up about half of the red and green chilies for me?
Yeah, definitely.
And I've got here what we call curry leaves, which are great. They give it a really sort of pungent flavour. And that's the thing about Singaporean food. It's got it like a Malaysian as well. It's got sort of a mixture of so many cultures. You've got the Indian in there, you've got the Malay, you've got Chinese as well. And it's such a trading or port city that everyone else sort of gets in there and adds their little bit as they go along. I'll give that a bit of a toss around like that. And I'll add a little bit more oil to it because you can see the garlic's gone nice and caramelised. So I've got some ginger here that I'm going to slice up.
Is that enough for you? Enough chilli?
Throw it in. It's going to be way too hot, I know, but throw it in because, you know what, it's a sort of food that you will be sweating away. It's going to be red hot. It'll
definitely going to get your metabolism going.
Oh, that's it. Now, these snow peas, if you can slice them nice and thin for me. Now, normally when I'm doing a dish like this, and here's the tip when you cook it, is to have all these ingredients pre-sliced so that when you start throwing it together, you're actually in control. Because maybe you haven't got, you know, Zoe helping you, stir-fry it all, get it ready for you. So it's a good idea to have it all ready before you. The noodles are just coming up. What I'm going to do now is add some curry powder, which is probably the one thing that you must have when you're making Singapore noodles, is that curry powder. Can you smell that? And you throw it into the pan, so it's sort of, all the flavours sort of start to cook away, and the oils in the curry powder start to go all the way through it. Give that a bit of a toss like that, and I reckon these noodles are just about there. There we go, they're coming up. And I mean, they cook so quickly, these noodles, you don't want to overcook them. I've got a bowl here, and what I'm going to do, and just be careful, Zoe, so it doesn't splash you. I'm just going to pour this straight out of here into this strainer here. Like that. And then into my bowl over here, and then some olive oil in there, just to stop it from sticking, because we're going to add this at the end.
And is that something that you could prepare earlier?
You could. Now, this pork is cut really thin. It's from the loin. It's going to cook really, really quickly. So I'm just going to put it in around the side here and listen to that sizzle. That's what you want to hear. Throw that pan out of there. And look, just a couple of minutes with your marinade on there. Now, can you pass me some more of that salt, please, Zoe? Because I want to get some flavour in here. There we go, some of that stock in there. We'll just add a little bit of that just to bring the heat up there. It just sort of brings it together, slows down the cooking.
Now I can really smell it.
There we go. And I know that when I add the noodles, I'll need to add a little bit of stock to it just so I don't use up all the flavour. A few prawns in there as well. Throw in the snow peas. Perfect like that. We'll give that one little toss like that. There we go.
Oh, now
looks
that
good.
Smells amazing.
Now, Zoe, I've got some of this wombok or Chinese cabbage. Can you just shred about half of that really fine? Sure. And I'll grab some of these spring onions here. I'll just chop them. You know, they don't have to be too fine, just through like that. And once you've done the cabbage, Zoe, can you grab that coriander there and just chop it all for me? I'll throw this
And I love
onion.
this one because it's sweet. It's lovely to use.
And it just gives it the whole dish a little bit of crunch as well, which is what I love. There we go. One more toss like that. Throw that cabbage straight on top. If you give me that coriander, I reckon
bunch?
just about half of that. If you give that a
that?
chop, I reckon we're ready to bring it together. You just mix that around like that. The oil just stops the noodles from sticking together, and they're still hot, so I don't need to reheat them. You know, they're perfect like this, straight on top like that. The cabbage, you want it nice and sort of crunchy. There we go. Now, can you pass me some of that soy sauce? Look at that.
Yeah, I can do that.
Now, I like cooking these sorts of things in a big flat pan. You could use a wok if you want, but I prefer that the heat sort of generating all around that big pan there. Nice big sauce of
And
squash.
you know everyone's got one of these pans at home as well, so it's easy.
Exactly. Now, I would probably recommend that if you're doing this at home, maybe going outside to your barbecue and turning that on.
Okay.
A little bit of stock in there because you want a little bit of liquid in there to soak it all up. I've got my lovely big plate here, and I reckon we're about ready to put it all